Reports today suggest that Francis Ngannou versus Tyson Fury didn't do as well as many think. According to Dave Meltzer, the pay-per-view buys did quote-unquote terrible. On Observer Radio, Meltzer said, "I will have the exact numbers tomorrow, but they were terrible. Way below an AEW pay-per-view, possibly 10K for TV orders. I will have the streaming tomorrow. It was nothing close to Canelo or Diaz Paul buys." Chael Sonnen still thinks Francis Ngannou fumbled the bag by not re-signing with the UFC and fighting Jon Jones. Chael has high praise for Francis for his performance against Tyson Fury. However, he thinks he would have made more money fighting Jon. On his YouTube channel, Chael said, "I want to praise Francis today, but I do want the story told correctly. I think he beat Fury. I think he exceeded expectations. I think that he deserves a lot of credit, but I've already seen the story mistold, that he played this one and didn't fumble the bag. Well, if the bag is a bag full of money, yes, he did. He absolutely did. To make believe that 10 million is somehow significantly more than he would have got on his pay-per-view participation alone against Jon Jones is incorrect. Not to mention the 2 years that he sat equals 6 fights. Let's bring it back and call it 5. And making it really easy, let's call it 4 fights. His 4 fights would have equaled 10 million had he promoted them. You've got to really understand this. It's not the way people keep saying it is. I don't know what he's got in MMA. I don't know who is there for him in PFL. I know the leading opponents for him are Junior Dos Santos and Fabricio Verdum. I don't give those guys a hard time, they're studs, but no one is clamoring to see that fight. Meanwhile, if I told you Francis is going to return to boxing, he's going to take on Deontay Wilder, you will stop what you're doing and mark it down in your calendar. So let's see where he goes. I do want to praise him, but I praise him in the spirit of let's tell the story accurately in the way that it happened. Daniel Cormier does not think the UFC is upset over Francis Ngannou's performance against Tyson Fury. DC says Francis uplifted the sport of MMA as a whole. On the DC and RC show, DC said, "You see Junior Dos Santos, Israel Adesanya, Kamaru Usman, the legend Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture. So many great mixed martial artists were in attendance last weekend to watch Francis Ngannou do something that was unprecedented, was unexpected, and really did turn out better than anyone could have ever expected. There's this idea that the UFC is upset that Francis Ngannou did what he did. Why would they be? Francis Ngannou uplifted the entire sport last weekend. Francis Ngannou went out there as a mixed martial arts world champion and fought the lineal heavyweight champion of the world and lost by split decision. Even though Tyson Fury won the boxing match because he won the boxing match, he did not win the fight. He didn't win the fight against Francis Ngannou. Francis won that. He won the boxing match, and he won the scorecards. Who ultimately lost the night was Tyson Fury. Francis won." Dricus du Plessis reacts to Khamzat Chimaev potentially getting the next middleweight title shot. Dricus says that Khamzat should be happy that Paulo Costa pulled out, because Paulo would have smoked him. Dricus said, "I mean, if I knew that, I would have fought a welterweight too rather than getting my title shot. That seems a little bit easier. I'd rather do that next. If that was 5 rounds, I think Usman would have finished Chimaev. It just shows you the caliber of fighter Usman is. Khamzat, the self-proclaimed boogeyman, is not so boogie after all. If I was there, maybe in the first round, yeah, I'm sure he could get me down. That's fine. I'm not scared to get taken down because he has to deal with me on the floor. But it wasn't the highest paced fight, and he was so tired. He was fighting a welterweight. If Khamzat's going to start dealing with top middleweights, with their power and height, it's not going to work out like that. Khamzat can be very, very glad that Paulo Costa pulled out. I think Costa would have smoked him. I hope he has an amazing medical team because he needs to be recovered and able to fight in the next 6 to 7 weeks. With me, he said after the fight, listen, the guy needs to go and heal up. We don't know if he's injured. He did give me that courtesy too, up until I actually need it. The UFC, they're going to be the UFC. Things aren't always fair, and the fight game for sure isn't fair. I think the way we make this fair is if Khamzat can't fight in 7 weeks, I get the title shot again. I have this weird feeling. I think it's going to happen." Nate Diaz has responded to the founder of PFL and Jake Paul claiming that he is avoiding an MMA fight with Jake. The founder of PFL, Don Davis, said if we could ever put together Jake versus Nate, if Nate would stop weaseling out and complaining about that MMA fight with Jake. Something like that, to put the mind of Jake Paul creatively against the technology available, wow. It's not just the spectacle of the circle. I respect Nate. He's a man's man. He said he'll do it in the PFL smart cage, and now he's hiding behind a rock. 10 to 15 million, biggest payday of his life. He gets beat by Jake, and now he's hiding behind a rock. Nate fired back with this tweet. He wrote, "This f***er talking like he wants to fight. I'm ready to fight tonight. This bitch ain't ready till 2025. Sean O'Malley discusses the back and forth he had with Devin Haney after the Fury and Ngannou boxing match. After the fight, Devin Haney tweeted at Sugar Sean, "Don't get ahead of yourself. I will still f you up." Sean replied, "All right, let's meet up."
Yeah, I wanted to say something else, but I'm like, well, I probably shouldn't. I told Zona what it was. We giggled. The thing about Devin Haney is, like, I'm not trying to throw shade or anything, but I've literally never watched him box. One fight ever. I didn't even really know who he was until more recent. Like, he's one of the, like him, Gervonta. There's a guy named like Shakur.
I heard of him I kind of heard of him when he fought Lomachenko, but then I'm like, oh, okay,
I heard he's a
box
guy
when he's on Bradley's Raw Talk.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah. I mean, I talked to UFC about like potential boxing fights someday, and they're like, that no one knows Devin Haney. There's 0% chance that ever happened. He's just not a star. No one knows him. No one knows between him and Gervonta Davis. You go ask some random person which one's which, they'll be like,
yeah. How big of a fight would with John Jones versus Francis be if the UFC would have kind of backed Francis in the boxing match? That would be, I mean, well, now it'd be a huge fight, dude.
Does it happen 2024?
Dude, I just think after Francis got treated the way he did in that boxing, how much money he made, I bet he's just like, if I do it in the UFC, you're gonna pay me $15 million for one fight.
Yeah, probably more at this point.
So John Jones and Conor McGregor's UFC payouts have been revealed today. Bloody Elbow was the first to find this information by going through newly filed unsealed court documents. These payouts are from 2011 to 2016. A link to their article will be in the description. Starting off with Conor. Conor was paid $3.285 million for the fight against Chad Mendes. Conor was paid roughly $4.5 million versus Jose Aldo. Aldo received $2.377 million. Conor made $5.576 million in the first fight against Nate Diaz. Nate made $2.38 million. Conor made a bit more in the rematch, cashing out $5.615 million. Nate also getting paid more at $4.315 million. For the fight against Eddie Alvarez, where Conor received double champ status, Conor was paid $6.812 million. Now for John Jones. In the fight against Rashad Evans, John made $2.278 million. In the fight against Vitor Belfort, he made $1.566 million. In the Chael Sonnen fight, John made $2.75 million. Chael received about $1 million himself. Alexander Gustafsson won, he made $1.173 million. Glover Teixeira, John made $1.237 million. In the first fight against DC, he made $3.637 million. DC made $1.14 million. And against Ovin St. Preux, John made $2.677 million. And that's going to wrap it up for the news. Thanks for watching. For daily MMA news and content, subscribe to Full Mount MMA and click the bell icon to be notified when we post videos. Here are the 3 top comments from last video. These comments are in reference to Ian Gary getting kicked out of another gym back in 2021. The first one's from Randy Mullins. It says the narcissism and ego radiating off of Ian Gary is putrid. The second one says Ian Gary is creating a situation where it's win or nothing. If he starts losing, he'll get dropped by everyone so quick. And the final one says, is anyone surprised about Ian? I can barely stand short clips of him speaking. I can't imagine wanting him in a gym every day. Those were the 3 top comments from last video. If you want to be featured in the next one, all you have to do is comment down below. And if you missed yesterday's news, click the video on screen right now to get caught up.